Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Wilmot Council meeting this evening. Come to you via the internet and YouTube. Welcome all of Wilmot Township to Wilmot Township Council. At this time, I would invite everyone to take a moment and reflect on how far we've come during our part to stop doing our part to stop the spread of COVID-19, and how, despite the number of rising cases, we can all continue to do our part. So take a moment, please. Thank you. Mr. Gerber, you do the land acknowledgement, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Armstrong. We have gathered in Wilmot Township on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples. We also want to acknowledge the importance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before the Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should take only what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. By acknowledging this covenant and the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, we are reminded of our important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community.
Thank you. Are there any additions to the agenda? Seeing none. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none. So we're all present with the exception of, it looks like Councillor Hallman has dropped from the scene and probably trying to get back on, that she will join us by phone as soon as she can, I believe. So the first item is the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there any corrections, omissions? Ms. Middleholtz?
Sorry, yes, thank you through you, Mayor Armstrong. We did receive something in advance from both Councillor Gerber as well as Councillor Fenning, asking for slight rephrasing of some parts of their minutes. I see Councillor Gerber had his hand up if he wanted to highlight the change that he requested.
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Ms. Middleholtz, through you, Mayor Armstrong. Yes, it was entered that I asked if it is a better act of allyship to leave the statue where it is over voting on removing the statue to storage as set out in the report. And what I was actually saying was, I was asking if it was a better act of allyship to take action and relocate the statue rather than wait based on perhaps a concern with the report and to do more consultations. So I just wanted to sort of clarify that I wasn't suggesting it was an act of allyship to leave it where it was, but rather just to figure out, should we act based on what we already knew versus waiting on the report and perhaps engaging in another round of consultation. So I had sent that into the to the clerk as well. So thank you.
That will be noted. So is there anything else on the minutes? Councillor Gordick?
Yes, on page 11, through you, Mayor. I'm just because I'm not sure if Councillor Hallman's here, but she didn't raise a point of information. She raised a point of order. So I'm not quite sure, just for clarification and making sure that the wording is correct. And I'm not sure if she's around to clarify that, but it was a point of order, not a point of information that she did. Thank you.
Okay, so noted. Ms. Middleholtz?
Yes, actually, I believe it was, she raised both a point of information and a point of order. She used the two terms interchangeably. So we can we can change the minutes to reflect that she had used both of those terms.
Very good. Anything else? Councillor Fenning?
sorry, lowering my hand, unmuting myself. I had sent a couple minor revisions to the clerk, and as long as those are processed, I'm fine.
Yes, they were noted. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. No other comments? Okay, so recommendation is that the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as presented. Council meeting August 24, 2020, as amended. All in favor? Oh, true, we do need that. And that was moved by Councillor Gerber and seconded by Councillor Fenning, and everyone voted in favor of it, so that's cool. Okay. There are no public meetings, so the next we have presentations. And before commencing with hearing from delegations, I would like to remind all delegations of some guidelines for participation. Please leave your video camera turned off and your microphone audio muted until you are called upon to speak. Delegations will be allowed 10 minutes to speak and will be provided a 2-minute warning reminder when your 10 minutes is nearing completion. We also ask that you leave the meeting once your issue has been addressed. You are then welcome to watch the remainder of the meeting being webcast live via YouTube. If you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in an immediate muting and removal from the meeting: interrupting councillors, staff, or other delegations, derogatory statements about councillors, staff, or others, hate speech, or defamatory comments. So the first delegation is from the Wilmot Family Resource Center. Good evening, Margaret.
Actually, this is Sister Ann Keffer speaking.
Oh, sister, welcome.
Thank you. Margaret is our IT person, so she sent everything in. So
Okay.
That's why my name will not appear. Actually, there are 4 of us that are going to be making this presentation.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Les Armstrong. Thank you, Wilmot Township Council and staff, for your time this evening. We are the Wilmot Ecumenical Working Group on Indigenous Settler Issues. We are not the Family Resource Center. In the order that we're going to be presenting tonight is Gladys Bender, Reverend Margaret Walker, myself, Sister Ann Keffer, and Dorothy Wilson. Are you seeing our slides? Is the PowerPoint there for you?
We all have it in our package, but there we go. It's coming up.
There we go.
There
All
you go.
right. So there we are. You can see who we are. And what we're using is the word Indigenous worker. At one point we suggested elder, but we needed to change that because we are the elders are being worked to death. So we're looking for a worker. Next slide, please. We are here this is our agenda for this evening, these 10 minutes. We are here to share information about a collaborative effort with the Wilmot Family Resource Center. We're working with them to seek out an Indigenous worker for Wilmot Township. Next slide, please. The Wilmot Ecumenical Working Group on Indigenous and Settler Issues began meeting to consider how this community could respond to the 94 calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of 2015. We have representation from 4 local congregations. Our overarching goal is to find ways of being in respectful relationship with Indigenous people. We believe that we have much to share with each other and much to learn. We began by hosting several events to raise awareness of Indigenous settler relations. Next slide, please. Perhaps you were among the over 80 participants who attended the blanket exercise in 2017 in the New Hamburg Community Center. The blanket exercise is an experiential exercise that teaches Indigenous history, and it covers around 400 years of history. Were you one of the 300 from Wilmot Township who attended the play, Discovery, A Comic Lament in 2018? The TRC asked that we repudiate concepts used to justify European sovereignty over Indigenous lands and peoples, such as the doctrine of discovery. The attitudes embedded in the doctrine of discovery continue to be alive in the way we tell our stories of settling this land. Following up on those two well-attended events, our group is embarking on a new project in partnership with the Wilmot Family Resource Center. We are endeavoring to procure funds to assist the Resource Center to hire an Indigenous worker as part of our commitment to promote reconciliation with Indigenous people. Next slide, please. Our group has held 2 more events to facilitate more understanding and begin raising funds. Both these events were well attended, and a groundswell of enthusiasm became evident for the hiring of an Indigenous worker. A free screening of the movie Indian Horse was shown in January 31, 2020, attended by over 65 people. And this movie sheds some light on the residential schools that many Indigenous people were forced to attend and the involvement of many churches. An audience of over 60 listened on a very snowy February 27th in 2020 as newly retired historian Dave Neufeld from Waterloo Regional Museum enlightened us on a topic they never taught us this in school. He elaborated on the artifacts that have been found in this area that confirm the existence of longhouses and Indigenous communities long before European settlers arrived. Case in point is the archaeological excavation at Huron Road and Fisher Hallman. The proceeds of the annual Lenten lunch program were allocated to this project by the New Hamburg Ministerial. Unfortunately, the need to be physically distant canceled the lunches. We are anticipating additional funds from some other church groups. Next slide, please.
The Wilmot Family Resource Centre vision is a strong community with healthy families where all individuals are valued and have opportunities to participate and grow. The Resource Centre serves the entire community of Wilmot, and the need for an Indigenous worker was first identified through their family violence prevention program. Statistics Canada reported in 2009 that victimization of Aboriginal women was close to triple that of non-Aboriginal women. In the 2016 census data, 355 people identified themselves as Indigenous in Wilmot Township. However, this number should probably be much higher since stigma, shame, and fear often keep people from claiming their heritage. Women deserve and need to be supported in ways that best foster their physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual healing. Right now, women identifying as Indigenous must travel outside Wilmot Township to seek culturally appropriate programs and supports. These women often face additional barriers, such as low income and lack of transportation, which make accessing these services even more difficult. Additionally, youth have expressed a deep longing for culturally appropriate supports, ones which foster their beliefs, honor their spirits, and help them grow into the people they are meant to be. Next slide, please. The Resource Centre envisions a position will, 1, support and counsel women affected by family violence. 2, help instill a respect for the natural world and Mother Earth. 3, share knowledge and provide guidance. 4, help shape the resource center's programming for children, youth, and adults. And 5, foster respectful relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The final report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission stated that Canadians must do more than just talk about reconciliation. We must learn how to practice reconciliation in our everyday lives. Next slide, please.
Our understanding is that many of the Indigenous people of Wilmot Township have little or no connection with their own culture due to the residential schools being adopted into non-Indigenous families or racism. An Indigenous worker can help them connect to their tradition, their knowledge, culture, and values. With an Indigenous worker available within our township, members of this community will find ways to connect, to understand, and to respect those who inhabited these lands for thousands of years before our ancestors arrived here. Next slide, please. Our desire is to help provide funding for an Indigenous worker to be available at the Resource Center. 1/2 of the cost will be borne by the Resource Center. And our group has found funding for 1/2 of the costs for 2020 through gifts from individuals, congregations, fundraising events, as we've already named. We're excited about this project and have discovered a growing enthusiasm among the members of this township. Having the worker located at the Resource Center in New Hamburg means they will be reaching out to the whole township. We will be making a request for some funding from the Wilmot Township Council in your next budget cycle, I understand to be November. Next slide, please.
The Wilmot Ecumenical Working Group on Indigenous Settler Issues has shared some information with you about our group and how we came to get involved in the project to assist with the funding for the Wilmot Family Resource Center to hire an Indigenous worker. You have heard about why this is an important initiative for our entire community. Our group believes that this project aligns very well with several aspects of the township's strategic plan, including the vision of Wilmot as a cohesive, vibrant, and welcoming community that is evolving and growing as a community of caring people. The strategic plan values diversity, inclusivity, and the importance of involving community groups. The plan also supports our rich cultural heritage and volunteer initiatives in the community. The Wilmot Council has demonstrated its desire to work towards reconciliation with Canada's First Nations people by taking the action of starting its meeting with a land acknowledgement and responding to concerns raised about the Prime Minister's path. Next slide, please. The Wilmot Ecumenical Working Group on Indigenous Settler Issues hopes that you will agree that it is important to have an Indigenous worker available at the Resource Center and will consider working with us to move this project forward. We realize that the members of Council will need time to absorb the information that has been presented this evening. We look forward to meeting with you again in the fall. Next slide, please.
Thank you for your attention this evening. We're happy to answer any questions that you have about this initiative. Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you for your presentation. Does anyone on council have any questions of Councillor Gordick?
Through you, Mayor Armstrong. First of all, thank you for the presentation. Been to some of the events that you've had and each time walk away with something new to hear. I'm just curious, you asked, you're going to be asking council, do you have an amount set in mind that you were thinking of asking council with regards to funding? And is there a cost involved with this hiring?
May I just answer?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. We don't have an exact number at this time because that is all continuing to be worked out. But we're hoping that the cost to the township council or the township would be 1/2 of the salary. And it is only a part-time position, so we're not talking humongous amount of money.
Thank you.
Does that help? We were looking at somewhere between 7,000 and maybe 8,000, something like that, but that's not a very firm figure.
No. We'll let you continue your studies to find out exact amounts.
Right.
Okay. Councillor Fenning.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Armstrong. Thank you so much for the presentation tonight. When are you hoping to hire this person? And is there anything you can tell us about the recruitment process so far?
Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, thank you. The actual hiring will be done by the Wilmot Family Resource Centre, and they are preparing the final documentation on that. So the question would have to be answered by them. We'd have to refer it to them.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Hallman, I see you're on the line. Do you have any questions?
Through the mayor, thank you. Just thanks for the presentation, and I look forward to more data coming back to council in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for your presentation, and look forward to the report coming back. Thank you. Next item is the Thatcher's drain. Ms. Middleholtz.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Armstrong. I don't really have anything to highlight at this point in time. I will be asking, however, for the engineer, Jeremy, last name has just evaded me. Sorry, Jeremy Taylor, to provide his presentation to council. I have provided two drawings to IT for them to put on the shared screen for part of his presentation. So if they could please do that. And if Mr. Taylor, if you'd like to begin your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Armstrong and Council. And I can see that the presentation has the drawing number 1 and 2 up on the screen for the Nature's Alpine Municipal Drain 2020. Just checking everybody can hear me okay. So I'll continue on. The drainage report is a result of a petition that was submitted by the owners or representative owners of Nature's Alpine back in 2014, and then a subsequent appointment of Burnside as the drainage engineers in 2015 of March. The petition submitted indicated that the property required a legal outlet for their stormwater management ponds, both an east and west pond at that time, that was required as a result of the Ministry of the Environment. At that time, it was called MOE, has since been changed to MECP. It was not an order, but it was a request and some work that they were doing on the property that the Ministry of Environment indicated that a legal outlet was required. The on-site meeting was held in May of 2015. At that meeting, we did a summary of the petition that was being submitted, the proposed requirements that may come into play with regards to the drain. We talked about some possible drain locations and also gave a general overview of the Drainage Act process and how that operates, so the landowners had a beginning understanding of the process. After that meeting, we went back and did some surveying and some preliminary design based on the information that we had at that meeting. And we did a second meeting, an information meeting, in August of 2016. And at that meeting, we reviewed our findings. We presented 3 options for the landowners at that meeting to consider. And other thing that came out of that meeting is it became apparent that the downstream landowner of Lot 20, which is on the left-hand side of that screen, noted as Baden View Developments, was not interested in having a municipal drain encumber their property. They were starting the process, or were in the process of developing, which I believe they've continued through this time. So we went back and discussed this at the meeting. The upstream landowners generally didn't have a concern with the way that the water was outletting at that downstream property edge. So we decided at that time that we would stop our municipal drain at that lot 1920 property line and look at an insufficient outlet for purposes to meet the requirements of the Drainage Act, but also satisfy the requirements of the petitioning property to gain a legal outlet. In 2018, we submitted a draft report to staff to take a look at and consider how we had proposed the 2 drainage works. At that time, what we looked at was both a channel for the branch and for the main drain. At that time, the staff raised some concerns with what was shown on this drawing as the main drain, which is on the right side of the screen coming from the East Pond. We had proposed a path through the woodlot area, which was noted as a core environmental feature. And there was some concern raised with clearing some area through that woodlot. There was also some concerns raised with downstream on the main drain, which is on the east side, which the municipality was starting going through the process of developing that right of way. And they also indicated at that time that the downstream properties were also looking at additional development. We had a 3rd meeting held in January of 2020. And I just realized right now, this is the drawing from the old report that was submitted, or the draft report. Don't know if you have the drawing 1 of 2 in the package for, this is the draft report that's in the package here, so.
I will, through you, Mayor Armstrong, I will try to find the proper documents. I used the ones that were supplied, but I will attempt to find the other ones. One moment.
So in the January 2020, we had an additional meeting with staff. And at that time, there was a change in the direction that came from Nature's Alpine. Nature's Alpine indicated that in their discussions with the MECP, they no longer required an outlet for the channel that was the East Pond on the property. So that main drain that we had originally proposed in the 2018 draft was no longer required. So we removed it from the scope of work that we were looking at for the petitioning property, and instead reverted to focusing only on the West Pond. In addition, at the January 2020 meeting that we had with staff and the drainage superintendent, we were made aware that there was 2 additional petitions within the larger watershed for downstream properties. It was decided, as we discussed the different petitions and how to go about handling them, that it would be best to proceed with the Alpine municipal drain for the West Pond first, have it put through into the meeting to consider, and then the drainage engineer that was appointed on the other 2 petitions would be able to proceed and work on their projects as well. The construction for the west drain is not required. It has been constructed. It was actually constructed prior to the petition being submitted by the landowners. So there is no disruption to the environmental feature of the woodlot at this time. This report is meant to define that channel that has been created in the past, providing a legal outlet for the West Pond on the Nature's Alpine property. It also indicates the future maintenance for that channel, how it's to be completed by the drainage superintendent, and the cost distributed to the landowners. The assessments for the cost of preparing a report, the cost estimate and maintenance schedules are all included within the report. I would say that normally our reports have a lot more documents within it as there's more construction tendering, but we've condensed it with this in this case, since there is the drain is already constructed. At this time, I'd turn it back over to Mr. Mayor, and if there's any questions or concerns.
Are there any questions from council at this point? For Mr. Taylor? Seeing none, we have some delegations. Our first delegation is Donna Kemp. Welcome, Donna. You're currently muted, so.
Yes, my husband and Martin and I are here.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. We're just reviewing the drawing here that's been issued, and as we noticed, and you did announce that it's not the same as what's been shown on screen here. And apparently, as we see, our property is involved in this municipal drain.
Actually, no, I don't see it's involved. I think we are talking about the West Pond, and that's what we are talking about. And I don't think it has anything to do with us. Am I correct there?
Mr. Taylor, do you have a response?
There is a small, that's the correct drawing that's up on the screen now. That was in the agenda
That's
package.
the
Thank you.
correct-
Thank you.
That's the one we have, yes.
Yeah. So as you can see, the original drawing, we had significant more area. This is the small area of the alpine drain that's being proposed. For the camps, there is a small part of your property in the northwest corner that we have indicated in there, and that's why you've been included within the drainage work. So the channel that runs through your property that was originally considered has been removed, and it's not part of the drainage works at this time.
That's what I understand when I listen to you. Yes, but then like the West Pond does not go at all towards our property, or how do you, where do you see that? Like it doesn't come at all to our property, does it?
If I may,
Yes.
the line, the dark line with the dots next to it, that's meant as the watershed boundary. And when we do municipal drains, we look at the watershed boundary and assess all the lands that are within that boundary to the drain. So when we looked at the contour information that we had supplied to us and available, as well as when we walked the channels, we deemed that there was a small portion of your property that would be within the watershed of the the Nature's Alpine Drain, which is that dark line through the middle that drains the West Pond.
Yes, okay, I understand. When you say watershed, okay, there is a little part of us, but the water itself does not flow. The drainage from the West Pond does not go through there, right?
Correct.
Yes, okay.
So it's not affecting us.
No, the watershed, yes, but no, the water does not go through there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So our next speaker is Carrie Sakura.
I'm not sure if you're able to hear me.
We can hear you, Carrie. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Armstrong. Thank you, councilors and councilmen. I appreciate you taking the time to review our petition. I just wanted to attend to keep my involvement. I am new in the plant for the past couple of years, so I'm catching up to speed. I'm very happy with Mr. Jamie Taylor, who's taking care of this for us on our behalf. I just wanted to say I approve. I look forward to the direction that this petition goes, and I hope you accept it on our behalf. That's all.
Okay, thank you. There are no questions of Carrie?
No questions whatsoever. I'm very supportive of the petition and very happy with what Jeremy Terralier has provided to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Carrie.
Thank you.
Mr. Darcy Miller is our next speaker.
Excuse me, through you, Mayor Armstrong. If the host could bring forward Darcy Miller as opposed to Chris Martin Root, please. Thank you.
Good evening.
Welcome, Darcy.
Good evening, Mayor Armstrong and the council members. How are you this evening?
We're doing well so far.
Good. Yes, as the camps were questioning, that East Pond outlet will not be on this petition nor across any of their property land. The West Pond one is the one that we are in support of being after, which runs on the southeast side of the property. That other east holding containment pond is not in this petition at this point any longer.
That's correct, Mr. Taylor. Yep. That's correct, Darcy.
Yes, correct.
Okay, yeah, with that being said, I am, so like as Carrie had said, we're in support of the petition going forward the way it's been drafted up at this point.
Very good, thank you. And there are no further speakers.
No, and that's all I'd have to say. So thank you for your time and consider the petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there is a recommendation before you that the drainage engineer's report dated July 27, 2020 for the Nature's Alpine Municipal Drain 2020 requiring drainage involving the corporation of an existing private drain, ditch and tile for concession south of Snyder's Road, part lot 19, RP 58R13951, parts 2 to 4, 7 and 8, Knapsinger Road, Baden, Township of Wilmot, Regional Municipality of Waterloo be adopted, and further that the provisional bylaw be given first, second reading, and further that the date of the court of revision be scheduled for Monday, November 2nd, 2020 at 7 p.m. and that Mayor Armstrong and Councilors Fisher, Fenning, and Gerber as alternate member be appointed to the court of revision. And that is moved by Councillor Fenning and Councillor Gordick. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next is the consent agenda. We are now into the consent agenda. If members of council have any questions and want to remove an item from the consent agenda, please indicate so now, as we will not take questions on consent items unless the items are requested to be removed from the regular agenda. Removed to the regular agenda. So the only items there are maintenance levies, Councillor Gordick?
Through you, Mayor Armstrong, I believe, I just wanted to clarify with the consent agenda, will the delegations that have been asked to speak still be able to speak if they pass? Is that how it works? I believe, is there not someone that's willing to speak this evening on that?
Ms. Middleholtz?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Armstrong. Councillor Gordick, we don't have anyone registered to speak to the items that are on this particular, for the consent.
That's what I was just double checking. Sorry, through you, Mayor Armstrong, my apologies. Tracy Murray had sent out an email earlier saying that Mr. Ardelden and Mr. Reipert were delegations, which are the 11.1.1, which is part of the consent, is it not? Or am I reading it wrong? Sorry.
No. Yes, through you, Mayor Armstrong, that is part of the regular reports, regular staff reports, not consent.
My page is not looking like it's part of it, so my apologies. Thank you for that, for clarification.
Yeah, there's just the one item on the consent agenda, isn't there? Maintenance levies, okay. And access, okay. So if there are none, no one else. Okay, the recommendation that report numbers COR 2020-32 and ILS 2020-21 be approved. Moved by Councillor Fisher, seconded by Councillor Gerber. All in favor? Carried. So next report comes from Development Services, the zoning application. Who's taking this?
Thank you, Mayor Armstrong. I was just waiting to make
Mark,
sure you're
good.
ready.
Yep.
So this application was part of a public meeting at the last council meeting. The application proposes to remove a current site-specific bylaw that applies to a property. That site-specific section increases the current minimum requirement in a Zone 2 residential zone for lot area from 0.2 hectares to 0.4 hectares. The reason that site-specific bylaw is currently in place is that in 2005, when the lot was severed, the applicant at the time completed a scoped hydrogeological assessment, and it was determined that that area was required to deal with a private individual septic without impacting neighboring water supplies. That property has since changed hands, and the current owner hired a consultant to prepare a new hydrogeological assessment, and this time involved some sample wells to look at the flow of groundwater and direction. And there was several updates to that report, but ultimately the final outcome was that it was determined there would not be an impact from a new septic system on this property to adjacent water supplies, both shallow and deep. Ultimately, that was reviewed by staff at the Region of Waterloo in the Water Services Division, and they concurred with the findings and supported the fact that a new lot could be created in this location without impacting groundwater. We did receive a letter from the neighboring property owner behind the proposed lot here. The report does outline what those concerns raised were and provides responses to that. There was some confusion over the previous process when we updated our official plan dealing with rationalization of boundaries. Ultimately, the property owned by the Reiperts portions of that property were removed from the Phillipsburg settlement area where development was not possible. So primarily an area on Herbs Road that was in the floodplain, didn't have development potential, was technically designated and basically counted against the development potential elsewhere in the township. So the exercise throughout all the settlement areas was to remove those types of lands and move them into an area where development could occur. When the Reiperts purchased the property, there was some conversations at that time and questions about whether they could sever any land from their property, and they were told they could not. And the reason that is because any land that is on their property was either not developable when it was in the settlement area, and the rest of their property is outside of the settlement area, which doesn't have any ability to be severed. So the difference between the Reaper's property and the property subject to this application is this property is within the settlement boundary, and based on the updated hydro-G study can comply with all the regulations for an individual septic system. So therefore there's really no barrier to creating a new lot. And for those reasons, staff support approval of the application.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Martin? Councillor Gordick.
I just wanted to, through you, Mayor Armstrong, thank Mr. Martin. He's been very helpful in working with the Riperts and myself to understand some of the issues with the history with that particular piece of property, as well as the Riperts. And I appreciate the extra time and effort that you've given to helping us to sort of navigate some of those concerns that they had. Thank you.
Thank you. No questions. We have our first delegation is Dionisi.
Yeah, good evening.
Welcome, sir.
Just checking everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. I don't really have much to say. I believe the report did a great job outlining everything. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Martin and the staff at Wilmot Township for putting this report together, and honestly always making themselves available to answer any questions I had throughout the process. It was a complete new learning curve for me. I learned a lot. So thank you. I do want to note to council that whatever we end up building on that lot will complement its rural surroundings and will be a great addition to Phillipsburg. If council has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. And again, your decision today can change a young family's life. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, thanks. Dio.
Thanks.
Next is Dave Riphart. Mr. Riphart.
You can hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. On behalf of Dave and myself, Debbie Riepert, we have been Wilmot Township citizens for over 29 years. And as well, my great-great-great-grandmother, a single parent, immigrated from Germany in 1833. She settled in Phillipsburg along the Nith River. She purchased the land together with the help of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Gypsy persons and built a stone home that still stands today on Wilby Road. We thank you for the opportunity to respond to the application proposal to delete subsection 22.206 of the zoning bylaw to remove the minimum lot size restriction and allowing the zoning to revert to the standard lot area requirement under zone 2 of 0.2 hectares. Our family has long been a part of the township and we have respected the leadership of this community, but find the situation disheartening for the following reasons. In 2017, the selling of 2242 and 2232 Nafsinger, numerous persons, realtors, potential purchasers, previous owners, and ourselves inquired with the township on the opportunity to sever further. And we're told that severance is not an option. Personal decisions were made based on this response. Most of all, ourselves in purchasing the adjacent property based on one home, not two, on 2232 Nafsinger. Returning to point 2 would allow for further severance opportunities within the town over and above the church property. We feel the township should fully disclose that zoning is subject to change provided the necessary tests are completed so we make informed decisions and not blindsided 2 years later. Or is this information only privileged to developers and builders for furthering their businesses? Our property is the only adjacent property to the proposed new build on 2232. And in speaking with members of Phillipsburg community, they acknowledged that if they were adjacent to said property, that the building of another home on the proposed location would not be a welcome addition. And based on the configuration, it is a tight fit, feeling like that of a city, not a town. The responses provided do not identify who will be responsible if there is contamination or the water level decline. It is for these reasons we are opposed to the zone change application for 2232 Singer. There is no more to making decisions based solely on stats. It is also the spirit of the town and the citizens that need to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Gordick?
Through you, Mayor Armstrong, to Mr. Martin, with regards to the Rupert's questions with regards to water and other issues, I don't have my report in front of me, so my apologies for that. But can there be some sort of answers for them with regards to water pressure or the water dropping off? Is that something that we can look at to alleviate some of their concerns?
Mayor Armstrong to Councillor Gordick.
Go ahead.
So the issue at hand wasn't related to water pressure, because they'd be on independent water systems, wells essentially, but there was some concerns raised in the comments regarding the impact, or if there were to be an impact, if the study were to be wrong, if there was an impact on water supply. So the primary issue isn't related to the Rupert's primary water source, which is a drilled well. There is a dug well on the property that's currently not connected to anything. One of the issues that was raised is that potentially they could reconnect that well. And the reason the study was updated to look at the shallow water system was to look at, if hypothetically they were to reconnect that shallow dug well, would there be an issue? So ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a bit of a misnomer in that that shallow dug well has higher nitrate levels and realistically wouldn't be used for groundwater drinking. But the study does demonstrate that should that happen, this septic system, the water does not head towards that dug well and therefore can't impact it. So the wording was updated from the consultant that prepared the report. Take greater ownership in that. The original wording the Ruperts had some concerns with because it had said something to the effect of not expected, but they did further update their wording to say it can't impact it. Because the water goes in an opposite direction. So I think that does address those concerns.
Thank you. Anything further, Debbie?
I just want to say that the water was tested in that well and it is potable at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fanning?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Armstrong. Just a question, hearing the discussion just now, is this, would this septic system be one of the ones that's required to be tested?
Here, Mayor Armstrong to Councillor Fanning, no, the property is not within the source water protection area.
Anything further, Councillor Fanning? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, so there is a recommendation that council approves zone change application 06/20 by Dionys Arlene and Priscilla Arlene to amend the zoning of the property by deleting section 22.206 of zoning bylaw 83-38 as amended. Moved by Councillor Gerber, Councillor Fanning. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So next report comes from Public Works, the Morningside Sanitary Trunk Sewer. Mr. Molyneux.
Thank you, Mayor Armstrong. I will take this opportunity to formally introduce our Manager of Engineering, Mr. Brian Bishop, to council and to our audience this evening. He will outline the two public works and engineering reports that are on the agenda this evening. Mr. Bishop has been with Wilmot for close to a year and a half and has authored many infrastructure maintenance and construction reports that have been approved by this council. He has interacted with council, community members, and project stakeholders through the course of the engineering department business. In his time so far, he's been a key driver in advancing our work program, our projects, and specifications in infrastructure and asset management. He's been doing a great job aligning our department initiatives with our infrastructure goals to ensure long-term sustainable core infrastructure in water, wastewater, and roads areas, and organizing plans to gather infrastructure data to support evidence-based decision-making for our groups in public works and engineering. The two reports he will highlight this evening are a testament to that, both reports supporting important community and growth initiatives. I'm very pleased to formally introduce him to council this evening, and we'll turn it over to him to further outline these reports and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Armstrong, and to members of council, I would like to introduce this report for the Morningside Trunk Sanitary Sewer Environmental Assessment. Through the 2019 capital budget, the Morningside Trunk Sanitary Sewer Environmental Assessment was identified due to the updated official plan policy, which calls for a combined growth node between New Hamburg and Baden. In support of this new growth, upgraded and new infrastructure is required to ensure adequate servicing capacity. Through the municipal class environmental assessment process, all stakeholders in the vicinity will be contacted and public meetings shall be held. Following the competitive bid process, township engineering staff are recommending to GM Blue Plan in the amount of $178,844.40 plus HST. I'd be happy to address any questions should council require anything further.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, so the recommendation that RFP 2020-02 be awarded to GM Blue Plan for the municipal class environmental assessment, EA, and preliminary engineering design for Morningside Sanitary Trunk Sewer as per the proposal submitted on August 12, 2020 in the base amount of $178,844.40 plus HST. That is moved by Councillor Gordick, seconded by Councillor Fenning. All in favor? That is carried. You were in favor of that, were you, Councillor Hallman?
Yes, to the mayor.
Thank you. I just want to got to check up on you once in a while here. We can't see you, so we want to check and make sure you're okay. So the next report is the automated speed enforcement program. Go ahead, Mr. Bishop.
Through you, Mayor Armstrong, and the members of council, I would like to introduce this report for the automated speed enforcement program. In 2019, the Highways Traffic Act was amended to permit municipalities to use automated speed enforcement in school and community safety zones. Region and area municipalities meet quarterly, with this project being a routine topic for a consistent and organized regional implementation of this initiative. The goal is to reduce traffic speeds in school zones and at a later date through community safety zones through implementation of this traffic safety program within our communities. As noted in the report, the township role is in this program is to recommend site selection areas. As such, staff have recommended that the new Dundee Public School on Bridge Street be the first installation. This report also recommends that council authorize staff to enter into an agreement to allow for the region to implement this program. There is no capital or operating financial cost to the township as a result of this initiative. Communications of the traffic safety program to the community would be through Region and Ontario Traffic Council websites, Region social media, as well as Township social media network. Inquiries about the program would be directed to the Region's Service First Contact Center to best address the staff responsible for implementing and operating this program. At this time, I'd be happy to address any questions should council require anything further.
Thank you, Brian. I have one question. The four choices that are there, we have Snyder's Road West twice, the Sir Adam Beck School and Waterloo Oxford Secondary School. And I was just curious, because of their close proximity to each other, why they would not be just considered as one.
Through you, Mayor Armstrong, I believe that the program required a certain distance for the automated speed enforcement program to be on 150 meters on either side of the property line. So the region wanted to ensure that each school was managed separately.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fisher.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Armstrong. Welcome, Brian. What would be the parameters for deciding where these speed signs go? Would it be amount of students or traffic? Is there traffic counts that go in with that? Or
through you, Mayor Armstrong, there was a variety of factors. Speed limit, compliance, historical pedestrian, collision, traffic volumes, the presence of sidewalks, boulevard space. So those are quite a few factors that the region and the townships looked at to specify specific schools.
No further questions, Mr. Fisher? Okay, Councillor Gordick.
Through you, Mayor Armstrong. Just briefly, Brian, and thank you for the reports and welcome. Just curious if there's a timeline. I didn't notice it in the reports as to the other placements, or are those just the suggestion ones and we'll see how it goes? Is there sort of a time frame to get the other schools up and running with those signs?
Through you, Mayor Armstrong, at this time, there isn't a timeline right now. The region has suggested that at the beginning, pre-COVID, there was going to be 2 locations for each municipality in the region. Now, due to budget constraints, they've reduced it down to 1, and there hasn't been a timeline dictated yet on where we can implement more additional measures for new schools.
So thank you. A follow-up. So just to reiterate, I'm happy that Bridge Street is one of them. While it's not in my ward, I know there's other schools there, but I do find that Bridge Street seems to be a problem with the particular school. So it's a good first location. I think it's very hard coming through New Dundee there and seeing how busy that road can be. So a good choice, I think, at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and Brian, how long are is each location going to be used? Are they going to be set up?
The region hasn't specified yet on how long the system is going to be set up for, so I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fenning.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Armstrong. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. I think there are a number of places in the community that might wish they could have the installation, but I do agree that this is definitely the top priority out of the list based on the statistics.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hallman, did you wish to make any comments?
Through the Mayor, thank you for calling on me. Yes, thank you. I am happy to see this site being put forward for recommendation from staff to council. We've had many incidences in New Dundee, including a collision with a bus in the near area. So seeing this recommended, I know the community is really looking forward to hoping that this will lead in a direction of mitigating traffic and slowing travelers traveling through our community, as it's usually a way through, and making it a safer place for our community.
Thanks, Councillor Hallman. Now we have 2 delegations. The first one being Mr. Dave Moore.
Hi there.
Welcome, Dave. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to just put forward my support for choosing New Dundee School as the location for the photo radar. Every morning I walk my dog down Bridge Street, and every morning I see all kinds of cars speeding through. I think the road kind of lends itself to a natural kind of tendency for people to speed just because it is so straight, and I think people kind of disregard the fact that it's a residential area and that there's a school in the area. So I would very strongly support that recommendation, especially in light of the fact that there's a school there and there's kids playing in the neighborhood all the time, my own included. So thank you very much. That's everything.
Thank you, Dave. Chris Martin-Root.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Welcome, Chris. Yes, we can hear you.
Fantastic. Well, again, good evening to the Wilmot staff, councillors, and mayor. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to address council and speak to the topic of an automated speed enforcement program being put on Bridge Street within the school zone of New Dundee Public School. As a brief introduction, my name is Chris Martin-Root. I do live in New Dundee, and I live right on Bridge Street. So I have vested interest in this. I have even more interest because I have a child who attends New Dundee Public School and one that attends Waterloo Oxford, but picks up the bus at New Dundee School in the morning. So the topic of speed in front of schools has been talked about for a very long time. I started lobbying for a change at Wilmot Township back in 2014. And in 2015, the New Dundee Public School Parent-Teacher Association organized a campaign to lobby the township, and due to the fact that these schools are on regional roads, the region, to reduce the speed in front of Baden, Beck, Forest Glen, New Dundee Public Schools. And I'm pretty sure that Councillor Fisher and Councillor Gerber, and along with Mayor Armstrong, will remember that interaction. And actually the township supported a movement, and that was actually documented in the report, township report TES TRP 1510. The region investigated it and explained that their data showed that driving behavior does not change by simply lowering a posted speed limit, and that other means would have to be implemented when the time comes. Well, in 2020, it looks like this time has come, and I'm so pleased that New Dundee is being considered for this project. In my opinion, as someone who lives on Bridge Street, speeding is still an issue. Don't get me wrong, not everyone speeds, but the outlier drivers make up for the mindful ones. The layout, much like Dave said, the layout of Bridge Street makes it easy and potentially tempting to speed, especially when it's perceived that the chances of getting caught are pretty low. Speeders come through at all times of the day and at night. And it's sad to say that during an evening walk during COVID with my family, I personally witnessed street racing from a pair of cars coming into town from the East End, and they would have been at max speed in front of the school. I've also seen cars travel at reckless, unsafe speeds on Bridge Street in front of the school while I'm taking my kids trick-or-treating. It was ridiculous. Now, those who know me know that I am not one to be embarrassed easily, and I am quite vocal when I see people speeding through town. I tell them to slow down, and I do wave my arms to get their attention. And I am noticing an uptick in this, as I'm not the only person doing this. These actions are not uncommon. Some of our neighbors have also admitted to attempting to get attention of speeding drivers one way or the other. People are getting fed up. Now, the use of an automated speed enforcement program fits the bill, a non-subjective, consistent technology that does not rely on the physical presence of a police officer being on patrol 24/7. The community members in New Dundee have waited a long time for this opportunity, since 2014. And we are very excited about this prospect. And we're happy that there's going to be another means of controlling driving habits of people other than citizen intervention. Safe and calm communities, especially around school zones, are an easy cause to believe in. In closing, This initiative is Wilmot Township sending a clear message about the importance of reducing risk and enhancing safety for everyone within a school zone. It is the right message to send to drivers. It is the right message to send to pedestrians. It is the right message to send to the community members. This initiative to put automated speed enforcement in New Dundee school zone is the right message to send to our children and to the parents and the caregivers of our community. I thank you very much, and I'm very excited to support this.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate your presentation. And I will confirm that for a long time, it's been a problem speeding in front of that school, because I used to run radar in front of that school a lot during the school year round, and it was a problem. And hopefully this will help to get people to slow down. I think once it becomes more prevalent that people realize that they're out there, that this program is on the go, hopefully it'll work. Thank you. And that's it for delegations. No further comments. Okay, the recommendation that report 2020-15 regarding the automated speed enforcement program be received for information, and that Bridge Street in New Dundee be endorsed as the first installation location as outlined in the report, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute all necessary agreements and renewals with the Region of Waterloo for the administration and operation of automated speed enforcement to the satisfaction of the township solicitor. And that is moved by, I'm assuming, Councillor Hallman for one, and Councillor Gordick. And all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next is the correspondence and the recommendation that correspondence items 12.1, 12.2, and 12.3 be received for information. Moved by Councillor Gerber, seconded by Councillor Fisher. All in favor? That is carried. Councillor Gordick, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Armstrong. I'd received an email earlier this afternoon from Ms. Richmond, and she was hoping that someone would respond to her email with regards to costs. And to date, she hasn't received any response with regards to her query in the email. So I'm just following that up and letting her know that we've asked that question. So if that can be forwarded to the appropriate departments to make sure that her question is answered with regards to the cost of the PM path. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further. Okay. Next is the bylaws. Recommendation that bylaw number 2020-30, 2020-31, and 2020-33 be ready first, second, and third time, and finally passed in open council. Moved by Councillor Fenning, second by Councillor Fisher. All in favor? That is carried. Next is the bylaw for the municipal drain. Recommendation that bylaw number 2020-32 be ready first, second, and third time, first and second time in open council. Moved by Councillor Gordick, Councillor Gerber. All in favor? That is carried. Are there any notice of motions? Seeing none. Any announcements? Councillor Gordick.
I have just a couple. First off, through you, Mayor Armstrong, I'd just like to say that last Saturday, this past weekend, the residents of Foxborough Green celebrated their 25th anniversary with their first resident. So I wanted to send out thanks to Marg McDonald and her team of volunteers for organizing a wonderful event to mark the occasion. And many of the people that live in Foxborough Green have come from all over Canada to make Wilmot their home. So it was a pleasure catching up with Mr. Arbuckle, who used to be actually my principal in Scarborough when I was a little girl at a school called General Brock. So we're incredibly lucky to have Foxborough Green as part of our community. So again, happy anniversary. Second announcement is just a reminder that on the 24th is the Poor Boy Lunch, with a little bit of a change this year, is that there'll be curbside pickup and tickets are $10 each. And I've done a post for it, as well as the Wilmot Family Resource Center has done. So if somebody wants to get some more information, they can call 519-662-2731. And finally, next weekend is our, this Friday is September the 18th is, we'd like to honor Terry Fox on Hero Day in Wilmot. We're asking that people wear Terry Fox t-shirts to work. If you're having a Zoom meeting, picking up the kids, grocery shopping, any place that you do for next Friday. If you don't have this year's t-shirt, you can pick them up at New Hamburg's Office Pro. And on Friday the 18th, we're just going to be honoring a true hero. Then finally on Sunday, September 20th, is going to be the Terry Fox Run. It's going to be a little bit different this year because it's virtual. It's called, we're going to have people just walk, run, ride, wheel, or walk around their neighborhood, however they want to do it. And a little bit differently, that we're going to be having an opening ceremony stream live on Facebook. There'll be greetings from local dignitaries, appearances by celebrity guests, and local cancer survivors, plus some highlights from this year's 40th anniversary celebrations. There's a pre-warm-up and a performance of O Canada that will take your breath away. So I'd like to have everybody join us if they can, Sunday, September 20th at 9 o'clock, facebook.com/Wilmot Terry Fox Run. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gordick. Anyone else have any announcements? Okay, seeing none. So we need to have a confirmatory bylaw. The recommendation that bylaw number 2020-34 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on September 14th, 2020 be introduced, read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed in open council. Moved by Councillor Gordick, Councillor Fenning. All in favor? That is carried. And finally, that we do now adjourn to meet again at the call of the mayor. Councillor Fisher, Councillor Gordick, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.